This episode contains mature themes, including topics of obsession, betrayal, and violent acts, which some viewers may find distressing. Viewers' discretion is strongly advised. They called it a home invasion, a robbery gone wrong.
My sister Jessica called me, and she's absolutely hysterical, and I'm thinking, oh, so what happened? And she goes, someone killed Dad.
So he was cool?
Oh, for sure. I mean, as far as dads go, I had a pretty cool dad, yeah.
Later, the 49-year-old was discovered slumped over in his favorite chair. Stabbed.
A man brutally stabbed, left to die by his own pool. But as the investigation unfolded, the truth became far more unsettling. A successful husband, a secret affair, and a crime so ruthless it left an entire industry shaken.
How can this happen to this person? He has no enemies. Everybody loves this guy.
All right. Fab here for Fab Style Fridays.
He was the kind of guy that after he left you, you felt better.
Fabio was just bigger than life. He really was.
What drives someone to turn on the person who loves them the most? Was this a carefully orchestrated murder fueled by passion and greed? Or is there another story buried beneath the headlines? Tonight, we unravel the case of Fabio Sementilli, a respected beauty executive whose life was cut short. The pieces of this puzzle took months to fall into place, and as we walk through the crime, the investigation, and the arrest, you'll find yourself asking the same question detectives did. Who really wanted Fabio dead? Welcome to Crime of Passion. I thank you, my viewers, most especially my subscribers, for your support as we keep improving and bringing daily told and untold true crime of passion stories updates. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel. The sun hung low in the sky that afternoon, casting a golden glow over the quiet streets of Woodland Hills. It was the kind of day that made Fabio Sementilli grateful. Grateful for his career, his family, and the home he had built. In his backyard, where the air smelled faintly of citrus from the trees lining the patio, he settled into his favorite chair. A cigar smoldered between his fingers, the curl of smoke rising lazily into the air. He liked this moment, the solitude, the ritual of unwinding after a life spent in constant motion. He had spent years on the road, commanding stages in the beauty industry, shaking hands with some of the most powerful names in his field.
Does everybody welcome Fabio?
Fabio was bigger than life in the industry.
I love it.
He was the iconic guy, the international hairdresser that came to the U.S.
Oh, that's beautiful. It's going to be tough to beat.
Fabio was fabulous.
But here, at home, by the shimmering pool, he was just Fabio, a husband, a father, a man content with his life. He had no idea he was being watched. Beyond the fence, two men lurked in the shadows, hooded, silent, methodical. They moved with purpose, their steps careful as they navigated the property. They didn't hesitate. They didn't knock. They didn't offer warnings or demands. They came for one reason. The attack was swift and brutal. A hand yanked Fabio's head back. The first stab landed deep in his neck, a precise, calculated strike. The blade tore through skin and muscle, severing the carotid artery, unleashing a rush of blood. A gasp, choked, startled, escaped his lips. But there was no time to react. Another stab, then another. His chest, his thigh, 7 wounds in total, each delivered with intent. Blood spattered the patio tiles, pooling beneath the chair, seeping into the cracks of the stone. The figures didn't linger. They moved quickly, stepping over the body as if it were nothing more than an obstacle. Inside the house, they knew exactly what they were looking for. The DVR, the device that stored security footage, was ripped from its place in the garage. And then they were gone, disappearing into the evening with one last stolen prize, Fabio's Porsche. Minutes passed, maybe hours.
Jessica called me. Then Monica came on the phone because she started crying, Jessica. And she said, Morella, they killed Fabio. They killed Fabio.
At 5 p.m., Fabio's 16-year-old daughter, Isabella, returned home. As she stepped inside, something felt off. The house was too still. A faint metallic scent clung to the air. Her eyes trailed downward. Dark footprints, smeared, scattered, led toward the backyard. She called out. No answer. The back door was open, swaying slightly as if someone had just passed through. Her heart pounded in her chest as she stepped outside, the cool evening air chilling her skin. And then she saw him, her father, slumped over, motionless, his face pale, his shirt drenched in red. A scream shattered the stillness. The panic was immediate. The police arrived, sirens wailing, their flashing lights reflecting off the polished surface of the empty driveway, where his Porsche should have been. Neighbors gathered, whispering, clutching their jackets against the sudden chill of the night. At first glance, it seemed like a robbery gone wrong, a break-in that had turned deadly. But as detectives examined the scene, something gnawed at them. It wasn't just the brutality of the attack. It was what had been taken: the car, the security system. The items stolen weren't the expensive watches, the jewelry, or the cash easily accessible inside. Whoever did this had come with a plan, and that plan wasn't just robbery, it was murder. When investigators stepped into the Sementilli home, they braced themselves for what they had seen countless times before: a crime scene torn apart in a frenzy of desperation. They expected drawers flung open, jewelry missing, a home gutted by thieves searching for anything of value. But that's not what they found. The house was still, unsettlingly still. Fabio's Rolex, an $8,000 timepiece, sat undisturbed on his wrist, its golden face catching the light, ticking forward as if time had not just run out for the man who wore it. The home's safe, capable of holding a fortune, remained locked and untouched. Nothing about this scene felt like a robbery, yet something was missing. His Porsche, gone. A sleek, black 2008 Porsche 911, the kind of car that turned heads, the kind that would be hard to resell without attracting attention. And something else was missing, something that should have been worthless to a thief: the DVR that stored the home's security footage. It didn't add up. Who breaks into a home, murders the owner in such a brutal fashion, and ignores the most valuable items? Why take a car and a device that records security footage? Unless that footage was the real prize. Investigators turned to the neighbors. Someone had to have seen something. And then, a breakthrough. A security camera from a nearby house had captured movement. Two figures, barely more than shadows, darting toward Fabio's property, their faces hidden beneath hooded sweatshirts. Just minutes later, another camera picked up the unmistakable silhouette of Fabio's Porsche speeding away. At first, detectives followed the most logical lead. Los Angeles had been plagued by a series of break-ins linked to an organized group known as the knock-knock burglars. These thieves were professionals. They targeted wealthy neighborhoods, slipping in and out of homes in minutes, grabbing expensive watches, cash, and anything they could carry. It made sense, at least at first. But something gnawed at the detectives. The knock-knock burglars were opportunists. They didn't kill. They weren't known for extreme violence, much less a targeted, blood-soaked murder like this. And most importantly, they stole everything. They wouldn't have left behind a Rolex, a safe full of cash, or high-end valuables sitting untouched in plain sight. So why had this house been so carefully selected? Why had Fabio been killed so violently? The deeper investigators looked, the less this resembled a robbery. Their suspicions began shifting, and with each new piece of evidence, one chilling truth became impossible to ignore. This crime wasn't about money. It was about something else entirely. And the answer? It was much closer to home. Fabio Sementilli appeared to have it all: a thriving career in the beauty industry, a stunning home in one of Los Angeles' most exclusive neighborhoods, and two daughters he adored. Those who knew him spoke of his warmth, his unwavering optimism, and the infectious energy he carried into every room.
Hey everybody, Fab here for another Fab Style Friday.
Fabio, when he walked into a room, when he walked into the salon, what was it like?
It resonated. Good morning. And he'd call out everybody's name.
I heard you were the best around here.
Right. You know what, Roseanne, you heard right. I am the best.
Yeah, I won't doubt
And
it.
now I'm going to prove it to you.
All right.
He was a man who lived in the spotlight, a mentor in his field, a leader who built relationships just as effortlessly as he styled hair.
And I said to myself, what do I want to be remembered for?
I want to be remembered for how maybe I've made people feel in a positive light.
But behind the walls of his lavish home, another story was unfolding, one he never saw coming. His wife, Monica, was living a life parallel to his, yet entirely separate. To outsiders, she was the devoted spouse, the polished and privileged woman who wanted for nothing.
They had a big house.
The house that Monica wanted. My queen, he called her. She loved it because it had a huge kitchen. She said that he would come home, drop his bags, sweep her off her feet, and dance with her.
Girl talk. Like, what's going on? I mean, you've been married 20 years, Monica. What do you got to share? She was like, no, everything's really great. Everything is like, he's the love of my life.
But beneath the surface, she was restless, and she wasn't alone. For more than a year, Monica had been entangled in a secret affair with Robert Baker, a racquetball coach she met at the gym. On paper, he was just another fitness instructor, but his past told a different story. Baker was a convicted sex offender, a man who had served time for crimes against a teenage girl, a man who had ties to the adult film industry, his reputation clouded by whispers and warnings. Yet somehow, Monica was drawn to him. Investigators later uncovered an unsettling detail: thousands of phone calls and text messages between them. Late-night conversations, hidden rendezvous, coded exchanges that painted a picture of a relationship far more intense than a fleeting affair. It wasn't just infidelity, it was something deeper, something consuming. And then there was the money. Fabio had spent decades building his career, rising to the top of his field, securing a future for his family. But in the end, it wasn't his business acumen or hard work that mattered. It was his signature on a life insurance policy worth $1.6 million. If something were to happen to him, Monica would be the one to collect it. That policy, combined with the secrets she shared with Baker, raised an unsettling question. Was this affair about passion, or was it about something much darker? The deeper detectives dug, the more disturbing the evidence became. Every discovery seemed to pull them further from the idea of a random home invasion and closer to something premeditated, something orchestrated with chilling precision. 6 months before the murder, Monica Sementilli had sent an email to Robert Baker. At first glance, it was nothing remarkable. But when investigators examined it closely, the contents sent a shiver down their spines. It wasn't just a casual message. It was a blueprint to the house. Inside the email were sensitive details about the home's security system, the passwords, the camera placements, the user manual. Everything someone would need to disable the system or move unseen. Why would a wife send such information to a man who wasn't her husband? On the day of the murder, Monica's alibi seemed airtight. Security footage placed her miles away, at a Target parking lot, browsing the aisles like any ordinary afternoon. But something was off. Investigators noticed a brief moment of movement in the footage. Someone, a shadowy figure, slipping into her truck. Who was it? What were they doing there? And then, there was her phone activity. At the exact time Fabio was being attacked, Monica's phone was consuming massive amounts of data. More than usual. More than what could be explained by casual browsing. The pattern matched video streaming. Was she watching the crime unfold in real time? Detectives pressed her for answers. When they asked about Baker, her response was hesitant, uncertain. She barely knew him, she claimed. She wasn't even sure of his last name. But there was one glaring problem with that story. Baker's blood was at the crime scene. Not just a trace, not just something explainable by an innocent visit. It was there, on the property, mixed with the blood of the man he had brutally murdered. It was undeniable. Robert Baker was there. He was one of the masked figures who killed Fabio, and the evidence was stacking up against the woman who had called herself Fabio's wife. 5 months after Fabio Sementilli was murdered, police were ready to act. The evidence had been mounting, piece by piece, and now it was time to bring the suspects in. For months, they had studied the crime scene, traced phone records, and unraveled the connections that pointed to a calculated plan. What had first seemed like a chaotic home invasion had transformed into something far more deliberate. A crime executed with intention, not desperation. Then on June 14, 2017, detectives moved in. At the Sementilli home, Monica was taken into custody. The officers approached with a quiet determination, the weight of the case heavy on their shoulders. Monica, the grieving widow in the public eye, was now in handcuffs, accused of orchestrating her husband's murder. Meanwhile, in another part of Los Angeles, Robert Baker was also arrested. The charges? First-degree murder and conspiracy to commit murder. There was no ambiguity in the accusations. This was no random act of violence. This was not a burglary gone wrong. According to prosecutors, this was a carefully planned execution. But if Monica was innocent, as she claimed, then why did she seem so afraid? Investigators soon revealed a stunning piece of evidence, one that changed everything. During the investigation, police had set up a secret sting operation. They had wired a vehicle, placing listening devices where Monica and Baker wouldn't suspect. The goal was simple, to catch them in a moment of honesty, and they did. In the back of a police car, handcuffed and unaware she was being recorded, Monica's voice trembled. She turned to Baker and whispered, "They must have something." Somebody talked. It wasn't the reaction of a woman blindsided by false accusations. It was the reaction of someone who had just realized that the walls were closing in. Yet her daughters refused to believe it. Through the chaos, Jessica and Isabella stood firmly beside their mother. To them, she was not a killer. She was not a manipulator. She was simply their mother, a woman they loved, a woman who had raised them. Their loyalty never wavered. For 6 years, Monica sat behind bars, waiting for her trial. COVID-19 delays, legal battles, and shifting court dates stretched the process out longer than anyone expected. But through it all, she maintained her innocence. Then in 2023, a shocking twist unfolded. Robert Baker, the man whose DNA had been found at the crime scene, made a decision no one saw coming. He pleaded no contest to Fabio's murder. He accepted his fate, life in prison without the possibility of parole. For prosecutors, this was a victory, but what Baker said next sent a ripple through the case. He claimed Monica had nothing to do with the murder. Why would a man who had just condemned himself to a life behind bars clear her name? Was it guilt, regret, or was there more to this story than anyone had imagined? With Monica's trial still ahead, one question loomed over the entire case. Was she a master manipulator, or had she been caught in something beyond her control? As the courtroom filled with spectators, journalists, and family members, the weight of the case settled over everyone in attendance. Monica Sementilli, dressed in a modest blouse and slacks, sat quietly beside her defense attorneys. Her face was expressionless, but her eyes carried the weariness of a woman who had spent years awaiting this moment. From the very start, her defense team made one thing clear. There was no hard evidence linking her directly to the murder. Yes, she had been unfaithful. Yes, she had shared home security details with Robert Baker. But did that make her a killer? Did an affair and a few emails prove she had conspired to take the life of her own husband? The prosecution believed the answer was clear. They presented a timeline of unsettling behavior, each piece a thread in a web that, in their view, led back to Monica. They pointed to the surveillance footage, the erased home security recordings, and Monica's eerily calm demeanor after Fabio's death. She never moved out of the house, never replaced the security system, never expressed any fear that the killers who had allegedly invaded her home would return. Why? To the prosecution, the answer was simple. Because she already knew there was nothing to fear. Because she knew exactly who was responsible. Then came the evidence that stunned the courtroom, a photograph, taken in a dimly lit hotel room after Fabio's murder. Monica and Baker, together. On the mirror, written in red lipstick, were 2 words that prosecutors said told the real story of this case. Mrs. Baker. The air in the courtroom grew heavier as jurors studied the image. The defense objected, calling it a distraction, evidence of an affair, not a crime. They argued that people grieve in complicated ways, that Monica had found comfort in Baker after her husband's sudden death. But the prosecution countered with a question that hung over the entire trial. Is that how a grieving widow behaves? The attorneys rested their cases. The evidence had been presented. The arguments had been made. Now it was up to the jury. Was Monica Sementilli a devoted wife caught in an unimaginable nightmare? Or was she a woman who meticulously planned her husband's murder for money and a new life? The verdict was no longer in the hands of lawyers, detectives, or even Monica herself. It was in the hands of 12 jurors who would decide her fate. Some cases leave us with a clear sense of justice. A crime is committed, the evidence is overwhelming, and the guilty are held accountable. But this case forces us to question everything we think we know about love, loyalty, and betrayal. Was Monica Sementilli a calculating mastermind who orchestrated her husband's murder for money and a future with another man? A woman who, despite living in the lap of luxury, wanted more. More passion, more freedom, more control? Did she coldly plan every step, feeding Robert Baker just enough details to ensure he would carry out the brutal attack? Or was she merely a woman entangled in an affair that spiraled into something she never intended? Did Baker act alone, fueled by his own twisted obsession, hoping that with Fabio out of the way, Monica would be his forever? If that's true, then why was there no clear evidence that she had ordered the killing? Was she guilty of infidelity, of poor judgment, of deception, but not murder? And then, perhaps the most haunting question of all, if Monica was truly responsible, how did she convince her own daughters that she was innocent? Jessica and Isabella, the two young women who lost their father in the most violent way imaginable, never turned their backs on their mother, even as the prosecution painted her as a manipulative conspirator. Even as evidence piled up against her, they stood by her side. Was that the unwavering faith of daughters who knew their mother was incapable of such evil? Or was it the result of years of carefully planted doubt, just enough to make them question what they thought they knew? This is more than a crime story. It's a case of love, deception, and betrayal. A case that shattered a family, tore friendships apart, and left an entire community searching for the truth. So, what do you think? Did Monica Sementilli mastermind her husband's murder? Or has she been wrongfully accused? Let us know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more cases that leave you questioning everything you believe, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notifications. Because in stories like this, the truth is never as simple as it seems.